Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Hello. Thank you for being here today for the Arlington County Alliance of Hispanic Employees 2019 Hispanic Heritage Month Proclamation Ceremony. We're very happy and very proud to have you all here joining us today. I'm Erica Serrano. I am Alianza's Vice President, and I am going to be your Master of Ceremonies. I will introduce you to Josefina Giron, our President.
Thank you, Erica. Gracias. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Josefina Giron, and I am the president of Alianza. Alianza is one of 7 Arlington County employee resource groups. Alianza, the Arlington County Alliance of Hispanic Employees, is a group that welcomes everyone and a forum to provide learning opportunities, develop professional skills. It's a way for us to network, provide support to one another, build understanding and cultural awareness, as well as a means and a way to communicate the needs of Hispanic employees. Alianza has a rich history and has been a part of Arlington County for over 30 years. It was founded in 1989. Today wouldn't be possible without all the great help and support from the countless volunteers, many of which are upstairs setting up for the luncheon. And for those that are in this room, please stand up. Don't be shy. For all those volunteers back there, and also the students that came, thank you. I would also like to thank the officers. If you could also please stand up, Erica Serrano, Odalis Barrios, and Miriam Jurado. Thank you to Farzin, our diversity and inclusion manager, for all the great work he is doing and support he's providing. To the county manager's office, the county board, the county manager, I see you back here, thank you, our county board representatives. And lastly, but not least, to each and every one of you for taking the time off your busy schedules on a Friday, when I'm sure you could be somewhere else, but you have taken the time to share this moment with us. This year's national theme is Hispanics, a history of serving the nation. And we thought it would be meaningful to have a slideshow with recognition of Hispanic employees that have served Arlington County. We'll be showing that slideshow throughout. Hispanic heritage is part of our community and Arlington County. It is represented in our friends, neighbors, coworkers, and people we serve. Hispanics have a strong sense of community, family values, and hard work. Throughout history, we have had many influential Hispanics serve this nation. In 1928, Octavio Larrazolo became the first elected Hispanic U.S. Senator. Silvia Mendez paved the way for school desegregation in the U.S. when Hispanics were sent to Mexican schools. Hector Garcia served in World War II, earned 6 Bronze Stars, and lobbied President Johnson to allow a fellow officer be buried in a chapel in Three Rivers, Texas, when the funeral director stated that whites wouldn't like it. President Johnson heard about Garcia's efforts, and Army Private Felix Longoria was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. Justice Sonia Maria Sotomayor in 2009 became the first Hispanic and Latina justice. The list can go on and on. Hispanics' culture, heritage, and values play an important role in Arlington's county history as well in the United States of America. Together, we serve this nation to make it a beautiful and strong country. Let's honor and remember all the wonderful contributions that have been made. Again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the program that we have put together for all of you. Now I'm going to ask the teacher, Miss Crass, to please come up with her students from the Francis Scott Key Elementary School Choir. Please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Arlington County Combined Honor Guard. The Combined Honor Guards, Arlington County Police, Arlington County Sheriff's Office, and Arlington County's Fire Department.
Stand by, go! Attend, up! Right shoulder, full! Ready, cut! Forward, march! Ready? Hold. Present. Oh!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ready, step.
You may now be seated. Now we're in for a treat from the 5th grade class, the elementary school choir.
Salimos a ver el viento, pero el viento no se ve. Nos agarramos con los brazos, pero el viento se nos fue. Salimos a ver el viento, pero el viento no se ve. Nos agarramos con los brazos, pero el viento se nos fue. Mazorca de oro, granos de café, alas en los hombros, alas en los pies. Mazorca de oro, granos de café, alas en los hombros, alas en los pies. En el viento de América, los niños tenemos fe y sabemos que mañana es el viento de volver. En el viento de América, los niños tenemos fe y sabemos que mañana es el viento de volver. Mazorca de oro, granos de café, alas en los hombros, alas en los pies. Mazorca de oro, granos de café, alas en los hombros, alas en los pies. Se murió mi gallo tuerto, ¿qué será de mi gallina? Se murió mi gallo tuerto, ¿qué será de mi gallina? A las 4 de la mañana me cantaba en la cocina. A las 4 de la mañana me cantaba en la cocina. Cocorro, cantaba el gallo, cocorro, cantaba la gallina. Cocorro, cantaba el gallo, cocorro, a la gallina. Se murió mi gallo tuerto, ¿qué será de mi gallina? Se murió mi gallo tuerto, ¿qué será de mi gallina? A las 4 de la mañana me cantaba en la cocina. A las 4 de la mañana me cantaba en la cocina. Cocorro, cantaba el gallo, cocorro, a la gallina. Cocorro, cantaba el gallo, cocorro, a la gallina. Cocorro, cantaba el gallo, cocorro, a la gallina. Cocorro.
¡Bravo! ¡Excelente! Buenos chicos.
Thanks again to the Francis Scott Key Elementary School Choir. Thank you very much. Please give it up for them again. We will now have a performance by Alexandra Dagdelin and Nadia Tapia from the group Caporales San Simon. This is a Bolivian dance troupe, and they are going to perform for us.
DJ Papito.
Thank you very much, Alexandra and Nadia. Thank you. So now let's go introduce our keynote speaker for the day. Ms. Patricia Sosa is the Director of Constituency Relations for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. She is a native Puerto Rican, and she has a law degree from George Washington University. Patricia has worked for President Clinton as Director of Public Outreach for the President's Welfare Reform Working Group. She was the Director of Intergovernmental Division of the Administration for Children and Families at the Department of Health and Human Services. She was a Legislative Director for Congressman Jaime Fuster from Puerto Rico, and currently oversees all community outreach health initiatives of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. But, as if that is not enough, she is also the chair of the board of the Carlos Rosario International Public Charter School in Washington, D.C. Please welcome Ms. Patricia Sosa.
Let's see, it's good afternoon. What a wonderful event, and thank you to the kids, both for the dancers and the singers. Again, we have a great future. The Latino community has a great future. So I've been invited by the leadership of the Hispanic Employees Association, is that right, of Arlington County, to speak about the theme of the year for Hispanic Heritage Month, which is service, Hispanic in service. So what I would like to do, they gave me 15 minutes, is that right? Of my 15 minutes. At the end of these 15 minutes, I would have been successful in what I'm trying to do if you leave thinking of your own journey of service. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna model my own journey of service, what it took in terms of where I come from, my family, and now that I lived in DC, in the Washington, DC area, actually I spent a lot of time in Arlington. I should work here, I spend so much time here. What I'm doing in terms of service. So the first question is, what is service? You know, what is service? Service is to do good for others, you know, do things for others. Is service to work to make this a better world? Is service to, you know, protect our country, like the military, no? So you need to ask yourself, what is service? And truly, it's many things. It's many things. Doctors are doctors, and they serve their patients. But also when they volunteer in the community clinic, they're serving too. They're serving as volunteers, and they're not doing it as a profession. So your work can intrinsically involve service, but there are other things that you can do besides your job that will include service. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my life journey. I come from Puerto Rico. I was born in Mayagüez many, many years ago. I grew up in a very Catholic family. I was the youngest of 7 children. Yes, my mother had 7 children in 8.5 years. So I grew up in an institution, I said, you know, more than a house. Very, very well organized. But there was something very important in my upbringing, which was that my mother was very committed to not only to going to church, but really the values of the church. And for her, it was very important to serve the disadvantaged. We were very privileged. My father was a dentist, and he did very well. And my mother was able to have help. Imagine, with 7 kids, you needed a lot of help. But she was incredibly respectful of that help, and most importantly, always was paying attention to their needs. And I remember as a young person, my mother always thinking, you know, what the people around her, particularly these people that were serving us, needed. Their kids, if their kids needed money for school, if she would take her to where she lived every year, was a very poor neighborhood, and she would pay attention that everybody had food. So she was always thinking of others and the need of others. Eventually, as we got older, we grew up, and she was able to start working, she helped found one of the first homeless organizations serving the homeless in Puerto Rico. It's called Fondita de Jesus. Is still there. There's actually a picture of my mother because she took what she did while she could, while raising us, she actually took it more seriously, and with some other friends created this organization that was to serve the homeless. So obviously service is something that I grew up with, no? Very, very central to my life. I came to the mainland. Puerto Rico is part of the U.S., so I was in the U.S. But I came to the mainland to go to college, and then I eventually came to law school in Washington, D.C., and I stayed. And as a result, I have to adapt to live in two cultures, no? Because I grew up in Puerto Rico, speaking Spanish, in a Latin American household, so I was a cultural immigrant to the United States. And, through that process, became aware of the experience of other Latinos, no? That I had my Puerto Rican upbringing and my Puerto Rican experience, but that there were others that have different experience and different needs. In that journey, I ran into a woman named Sonia Gutierrez. She's a leader in the Puerto Rican community that some people may know her. She's quite well known. She was the head of the Carlos Rosario International Charter Public School. And I met her at that juncture of her journey, and she asked me to help her. And I will tell you a little bit about that, okay? I just see on the personal side, I want to make sure that I didn't miss any of the other questions. So again, and as I'm modeling a journey of service for you, think about it. Think of what in your background, what in your family, model service for you. Could be your father serving in the military, your mother being a volunteer. There's many ways in which our family or our grandparents and other people in the family model service for you. So I come to DC, and I begin my journey that I now will describe. When people ask me, what am I, where I come from, yes, I say I come from Puerto Rico, but I describe myself as a Washington Rican. And I say I'm a Washington Rican because I've now been living here for over 35 years, and I love this city, and I love this community, and I think it's for me. I married here, have 2 kids, have raised my kids here. They're Washingtonian, so I feel this is my community. And I say this because this is where I feel I need to be serving, because this is my community. So I go back, my experience running into Sonia Gutierrez, and can we put the slide? That's the school. And let me tell you a little bit about this school, because it has a beautiful history of service. This community, this school, was started in the 1970s. It had a different name. I believe it was the English program, and then it became the Gordon School. I don't know if there's old-timers here that may be familiar, because they serve many people, not only in the District of Columbia, but in the Washington, D.C. area. And the reason they started this school is because in the 1970s, they started seeing a large influx of Central Americans. And the city was not prepared to receive this influx of Central Americans. There were issues of language. They were mostly Spanish speakers. There were issues of skill sets for them to be able to adapt to the workplace and the opportunities that they were presented. There were issues of rights, of legal rights that were violated because they didn't understand the language, they didn't understand the community, they didn't understand the laws. And this, a group of Latinos that were established, and I would say, as far as I know that story, that history, and large numbers of them were Puerto Ricans, okay, like me. And why was that dynamic? Well, many of the Puerto Ricans that came to this area, and there may be some of these in this room, come to work for the federal government because Puerto Ricans are citizens. And when the federal government was working to diversify, they went to Puerto Rico and they recruited a lot of people from the island, also people from other parts of the United States. So they were the ones that were bilingual, that knew the community, that knew the law, and really were prepared to help these people. So again, think of it. There was an opportunity of service. Many of these people have their jobs. They didn't need to do this, but they did it because there was an incredible need of this community coming in, and so obviously having needs that had to be addressed. So they organized themselves, and besides establishing an English program that eventually was financed by the government, so eventually all of this became part of the government, they lobbied very hard for a number of things, including an Office of Latino Affairs that the District of Columbia has, and I believe in Arlington County also. I saw there was a diversity person here at some point. And the purpose of that was to really understand this community and the needs of this community. And here comes the Gordon School, which was a public school that was then retrofit to serve adults and to serve adult immigrants. And what was so important to shift gears, that not was just adult, it was important to shift gears because these adult immigrants have very special needs. So obviously, language first, no? If you don't speak the language, you cannot communicate, you cannot integrate into the community as effectively. Understanding the workforce, what was around, what opportunities they had, and developing programs to allow them to have skills to match with the workforce. And yes, many came with a lot of drive and a lot of ambition, and they were working, but the idea was to give them skill sets so they could do better. It was not just washing dishes, it was becoming the sous chef in the restaurant, because that way you make more money and you have a better future than just washing dishes. And the laws and the rights, that was very important. So out of that comes the Gordon School. The Gordon School, unfortunately, was closed in 1986. There was a budget crisis. And the school had to cut programs, and of course, serving immigrants. The political base is not as large, isn't it? It's a vulnerable population because it's easier for a politician to get rid of adult education because the backlash is not going to be as drastic. So Sonia Gutierrez, and here is where she really becomes a hero of service. Retired. She was a principal at the school system in the District of Columbia. She retires. And she, out of her own money, start applying for grants to open a nonprofit to be able to serve this community. Because she said they need help, and we cannot leave them. They need help. And she, of her own money, volunteered her time to start the nonprofit. At the same time, this is a coincidence, the District of Columbia started the whole charter school initiative for a variety of reasons. We're not going to go there. But while she was starting her nonprofit, the District of Columbia developed these programs that allow for the creation of charter schools, and they allow for the creation of a charter school that will serve immigrants, and that the school, the government will pay per student. So the government will pay for the services, and out of that comes the Carlos Rosario School. That was authorized as a charter school in 1998. Can we go to the next slide? It says 40 years of serving the Washington area because she considers those years at the Gordon School part of that, part of servicing the Latino community. And again, they build programs, like as I mentioned to you, English skills, but other skills to really help immigrants do better. Next. And this is the mission of the school. And again, I'm just sharing with you about the school, but it's to talk really about, how someone really committed to making this a better place, really put the energy to create this institution. And it was a viable option. It really became a reality because they put the effort. And she recruited a lot of people, including me. This is a student body at the school. Next. This is the different skill sets that they do. As I told you, language skills, workforce development, and services to really help those immigrants being able to integrate, understanding the challenges that they face when you're bicultural. And many of us in this room, we're bicultural. And it's hard when you come from the country of origin to adapt because of the language, to adapt because of different ways people function. And this school is there to help and support people as they're trying to adapt, taking into consideration their cultural and linguistic context. Next. And this is all the, next, I'm not gonna go into all the details. Next, this is the support services. And this is all about that. A lot of community events like this one, we do a lot of community events celebrating people's cultural background. Next. And this is how, the majority of them are able to stay employed, and many of them are able to get better jobs and better quality of life. Next. And these are all the different companies that they collaborate with. Next. And then let's stop here. So let me tell you about my interaction with the school. So this incredible institution is out there serving the community. I meet Sonia, she invites me to be a member of the board. And it's important that we help organizations like Carlos Rosario and others. I know there are a number of nonprofits here in the Arlington area. I have a number of friends that live in Arlington, and they are also very active in their nonprofits. Because nonprofits that serve our community need volunteers, and being a board member is a form of volunteering that is really important. Because by law, they need to have board members. In many of these organizations, for example, in mine, and I think some in Arlington, you need to be a resident. So your board members need to be resident of the county or the city where the organization is receiving the funding. And most importantly, the role of a board member is to make sure that the resources are being used adequately with what they're intended, and that they connect with the community. No, we are there as volunteers, making sure that these resources have been given to these institutions, whether it's Carlos Rosario in this case, and the amazing work that the school is doing to serve immigrants. I have a friend that works in a nonprofit actually here in Arlington that is about music and taking music to the school and taking music to juvenile detention centers. She's paying attention and making sure that those services are adequately provided. So again, my mother helped people when she was taking someone to her home and seeing the needs around her, then became a volunteer as founding a homeless center. And now I, her daughter, following her footsteps, serve as the board member. Now I'm the president of the board of adult immigrant school because I saw the need, because the community needed me, and I'm taking my time to serve the community. So I hope that you think about your own journey and what you can do in your community is really important, because otherwise we all suffer. Now we're stronger when we help each other, and these institutions are critical and central for a strong community, and in our case, very central for the strength of the Latino community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patricia, for those inspiring words. It's very dear to my heart, as you know, the service to the community, and I wish and hope that every one of you thinks about it and finds a way to become involved and support the community that we get so much from. Thank you. So now, for the proclamation, I want to invite Arlington County Board Member Eric Gottschall to read the proclamation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Buenas tardes. Bienvenidos. I have to say, it is really wonderful to be here on behalf of the county board. And when I see these beautiful blankets up here, I am reminded that in our own family, we have, we're sort of adopted Latinos family, because we had a Bolivian nanny for 7 years. And she used to wrap, all three of our girls, she used to wrap them in the blanket and throw them on her back, Owayu, right? And that is still, we have this beautiful picture of my oldest daughter when then we had our middle daughter, and Hilda had Marlena on her back, and then little Ava had her little baby doll and Owayu on her back. It is absolutely beautiful, and it's wonderful that they had that opportunity to get some of that culture ingrained in them. And I also want to say, before I read this proclamation, that it truly is an honor to be here and to celebrate with you, and that is exactly what we're doing. We're celebrating. Sometimes you hear from others, well, we embrace our diversity. And embrace, it's a nice verb, it's okay. But the truth is, I think that for Arlington and for the nation as a whole, our diversity and the culture and the enrichment that you bring and that you bring to Arlington County government as employees, it's not something that we have to accept or layer on. It is very much who we are as a community. You are embedded. It would be like Arlington without you would be like chocolate cake without chocolate. It's just not the same thing. It just wouldn't be who we are. So thank you so much for what you bring to the community and for this opportunity to celebrate. All right, now on to the proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month. Proclamación el mes de la herencia hispana. And by the way, por favor, perdonen mi español. Considerando que la presencia e influencia hispana en los Estados Unidos data desde los inicios de los años 1500 y whereas Hispanics have participated throughout the history of the United States in support and defense of the principles and ideals upon which this country was founded, and considerando que los hispanos han hecho contribuciones significativas en todas las fases de nuestra vida económica, social, cultural, y política, y whereas Hispanics constitute a diverse group with origins in 21 different Spanish-speaking countries in the world whose heritage links them with North, Central, and South America, the Caribbean islands, Africa, and Europe. And whereas we as a community and as a government are proud of the cultural enrichment brought by the diversity of the Hispanic population. Por lo tanto, yo, Eric Gutschel, de la Junta de Gobierno del Condado de Arlington, Virginia, proclama que desde el 15 de septiembre hasta el 15 de octubre de 2019 se celebra el mes de la herencia hispana. And for those that didn't quite catch that, now therefore I, Eric Gutschel of the County Board of Arlington, Virginia, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2019 as Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gutschel. And now, Jesse Manciano Duet is going to perform for us a medley of folkloric Andean music. Bear with us a little bit. We have to adjust. While we wait for them to get ready, you can watch the presentation with many of the Hispanic employees here in Arlington that send their pictures to be featured there. Maybe you recognize some of the faces. Just tell them that you saw them there. So the first selection is Triste Me Voy from the country of Ecuador.
cariño, sin tu cariño, mi dulce amor. Triste me voy sin tu cariño, mi dulce amor. ¿Por qué me dejas? ¿Por qué te alejas? Si eres mi vida, mi adoración. ¿Por qué me dejas? ¿Por qué te alejas? Si eres mi vida, mi adoración. Si comprendieras cuánto te quiero, que solo vivo para tu amor, porque te llevo dentro del alma y solo vivo pensando en ti, porque mi vida tú representas ese dorado sueño de amor. Triste me voy sin tu cariño, mi dulce amor. Triste me voy sin tu cariño, mi dulce amor. ¿Por qué me dejas? ¿Por qué te alejas? Si eres mi vida, mi adoración. ¿Por qué me dejas? ¿Por qué te alejas? Si eres mi vida, mi adoración. Porque me dejas dentro del alma y solo vivo pensando en ti. Porque mi vida tú representas ese dorado sueño de amor.
Next, they will perform La Flor de la Canela from Peru.
Déjame que te cuente mi leño, déjame que te diga la gloria,
En el sueño que evoca la memoria, el viejo puente del río Lejano. Déjame que te cuente mi leña, ahora que aún perfuma el recuerdo, ahora que aún se mece en un sueño, el viejo puente del río Lejano. Jardines en el pecho y rosas en la cara, airosa caminaba la flor de la canela, derramaba lisura y a su paso dejaba aroma de pintura que en el pecho llevaba. Del puente a la alameda, a menudo quien la lleva por la vereda que se estremece al ritmo de su cadera. Recogía la brisa de la brisa del río y al mensaje. Más miras en el pecho y rosas en la cara. Airosa caminaba, la flor de la canela derramaba lisura y a su paso dejaba aromas de dulzura que en el pecho llevaba. Después de agarrarla el gusto de la hierba por la derecha que se estremece al ritmo de su cadera. Se cogía la risa de la brisa del río y al viento la lanzaba del puente a la alameda.
And last, they will delight us with Linda Cochabambinita from Bolivia.
Linda Cochabambinita, dime que me quieres, dime que tu amor, mi vida, es para mí solito. Dime que tu amor, mi vida, es para mí solo. Me voy Cochabambinita, chica tan bonita, luego volveré mi amor, amarte con fervor. Luego volveré mi amor, amarte con fervor. No te aflijas ni te olvides de este corazón. Piensa que yo te quiero con toda mi pasión. Piensa que yo te adoro con todo el corazón. Bueno, ay, la, 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 la.
Esta es para vos. No te aflijas ni te olvides de este corazón. Piensa que yo te quiero con toda mi pasión. Piensa que yo te adoro con todo el corazón. Bueno, Y para que se nos quite el estrés.
La
Thank you, Jessie Manciano Duet, for that wonderful performance. Thank you very much. Now I would like to call our Alianza president for our closing.
Thank you all again for coming today. I did want to share with you that throughout the month, Alianza has put together a couple of programs or a couple of events. So we have an estate planning seminar, a home ownership program. We've collaborated with HealthSmart to do like free Zumba throughout the month. So you all are invited to drop in any of the Zumba classes that HealthSmart is having. We have a life coaching seminar, a home ownership program, and also for our closing event, it's going to be at Sequoia. So we do have flyers, and this is all passed around in your county email. So please feel free to join. And remember, all of the employee resource groups are open to everybody. We're all delighted to have everybody come to our events and become members. So again, thank you so much for being here today. And we do have a luncheon in the 9th floor. Okay, thank you. Have a great one. Gracias a todos.